So, in one of our rehearsals recently, we tried to run through what we've got so far, and we realised that we've only got around 20 to 30 minutes. So, from that, we knew that we really quickly needed to add on a lot towards the end and potentially focus more on like the tragic hero side of things, which is what our client has recently said she wants us to focus on. The ways we were thinking of doing this is including Banquo and including kind of like the hamartia side of things, and comparing between the two, and potentially bring in the witches and how they come into it. So for the witches, I said that, like in our discussion of what we might do, that we could do something like my group did quite a while ago of showing the play with the witches and without the witches, and show just how much kind of their prophecies push the play forward. And this initially was kind of, they were like, yeah, maybe, but we did it quite a while ago. But then later on, we actually included that, which I think it's quite useful because to year 11s, it kind of shows that the witches are an essential part. And while it could have been done in another way of making them, or making Lady Macbeth and Macbeth do what they did, that was kind of the most obvious point in which something changes. And with the Banquo side of things, we definitely wanted to push forward the idea of the differences between him and Macbeth, and bring in hamartia, because when I was in year 11 I'd never heard of hamartia before and I had no idea what it was until we started doing this. So I think bringing that up could definitely be useful, as it can be linked quite a lot, because hamartia means like fatal flaw, which is Macbeth's ambition. So we decided to make a whole scene just about hamartia, kind of what that means in the play, as well as just what it means in general. So we split up into two groups. One group was focusing on hamartia, and the other group, my group, we were meant to be focusing on Banquo and kind of how he comes into it. But we got a little bit confused because Mr. Chip was in the other group and we were on our own. We didn't fully understand what we were meant to be doing, so we got out the quotes in which Banquo kind of opposes Macbeth in a way, like you can see the differences between them. But we started talking about hamartia in ours when we were kind of roughly running through it. But after we kind of showed it to the other group, they were like, okay, well, we did hamartia as well, but there were some key points in the ones that we did, which was like, why didn't Banquo turn evil, and what are the differences between the two, which are the two things that we kind of focused on, as well as hamartia. And then when we went through to watch theirs was like acting out the line about hamartia, which was his ambition o'erleaping itself. I think both of them are quite useful, as that quote is a very key point in the play, and it is very useful to comment upon, and it does lend itself to quite a few different types of questions and ideas. It is quite a versatile quote, but also bringing in Banquo. While it was Banquo was what the question was about last year, so obviously it is a lot less likely to come up this year, it's still useful to touch upon the fact that Macbeth, it wasn't Macbeth's fault. Well, it was Macbeth's fault that he did what he did. It wasn't just the witches, which I think we should do the witches first to show that, oh, but it's kind of the witches' fault, and then afterwards be like, oh, but Banquo also got a prophecy. But he didn't end up like Macbeth and then bring in the idea of hamartia. I feel like that way is the most logical and kind of follows through. I think the only problem we had was linking the Lady Macbeth bit that we finished on to the Banquo bit, and I don't think we've quite got that sorted yet. It's kind of a bit wish-washy, it doesn't really make sense very much. So we'll definitely have to work on that, but we don't really have that long anymore. We've only got really one rehearsal left before we are then performing it. we definitely had to kind of push ourselves a lot to get to the point where we're happy with it. I think overall, despite having to add a lot of things in a very short amount of time, we worked quite well together, and all of us kind of brought our different ideas. So I was able to contribute the witch's idea of including that, which gave us quite a bit more time. And then a few other people brought in the ideas of Banquo and hamartia, and I helped add to the Banquo bit of kind of comparing him to Macbeth in the fact that he got a prophecy but didn't do those things. So I think we all worked quite well. The only problem being obviously the fact that our group, when we had to devise our little section, didn't fully understand what we were meant to be doing and brought in the other side of things. But that ended up working quite well as well, just because that became a useful transition between the two. And also the quotes that we picked out to begin with in our group, we ended up using them, and that was a whole other scene as well. So it wasn't a total failure, we didn't have to get rid of everything that we did and waste time. So I think overall we did quite well, and I think we've just about got enough time now. And we've added another facilitation point in, despite not feeling back of it, which I think possibly we should have. It's about the hamartia section of people deciding what his hamartia is. While they've probably been taught that quite a lot in class, I think the feeding back up to why ambition is his hamartia, not just the fact that it is, would have been quite useful for them, I feel like. However, we skipped over that and just went straight into saying that, oh, this is what it is. So I feel like we definitely need to possibly think about adding that in if we have time, which I feel like we do. I feel like we'll have a few minutes towards the end in which the students won't have anything to do. But overall I think we did quite well, and I feel like I contributed quite well and fully after the whole mistake of what people were doing, I kind of understood where we were going with it and what we wanted to accomplish. The tragic hero side of things got a little bit lost in it, so we never really fully mentioned the tragic hero side of things, but we kind of came about it in a roundabout way, I guess, because we did tackle all the tragic hero aspects of it, we just never really named it as such. So I think possibly we need to add that in before we perform it, just so we make sure we get we meet all the client briefs that she's given us.